Hey guys, Gambling CS here with another knife review. This is of the Spyderco Spyderfly. Now, if you saw my unboxing for it, you know I had a little bit of a problem with it and all that jazz. It's all been sorted out. It's fantastic. It's fine. It is an authentic Spyderco Spyderfly, and it's really quite fun. Okay, so let's get started. So let's do construction first. The handles are, I believe, not sandwiched, but kind of forge welded together. They aren't one whole piece. It could have been milled out. I'm not completely sure, but there is a line you can see that goes all the way across it, so I'm pretty sure it's sandwich construction, though it's not a flow-through design like most traditional ballies that are sandwich construction are. It's nice and solid backing, which is fantastic, just like a lot of the FHMs or Filipino handmade knives, which are fantastic knives, or the Benchmade 40X series, all those jazz. Anyway, handles are great. As is consistent with all Spyderco knives, has a spider holes. It's got 2 of them, which is great. I don't like messing with the latch for latch drops, but you could do the same thing with the Spidey hole. And just kind of pivot off these. I think it's a little smoother action and just works a little bit better. It is spring latch, but it is a little touchy, but that's fine. I have mine set up for a Manila side, which means it's on the safe handle. Standard or Batanga side is on the blade. The bite handle, which is where the blade is. The reason why is because for both any kind of latch, I prefer it on the Manila side, because if there isn't any latch gate and it does fall down, then it'll hit the false edge or just the spine of the knife and not actually damage the edge, because that has happened to several of my other butterfly knives, and that is not fun, and just getting that chip out is just no bueno. It has really heavy duty tang pins. There are two main styles of knife when it comes to butterfly knives and tang pins. There's these tang pins, and then there's things that the most notably the 32, the 51, and I believe the 53 all have, which is called Zen pins. Basically, instead of having these handles hit that pin, it'll have pins drilled through and tapped in the sides right here, and they'll have little kicker bars right down here. It's just a narrow piece of steel, so that when it hits, it'll still close, but it'll hit on the 2 pins in the handles and not on the blade. It's just what I think is a little sleeker and a more gentlemanly version of the butterfly knife, and I think it lasts a little bit longer, but if you put a lot of pressure on it, it will put a negative leverage on that kicker pin, which could be bad for the handles, especially for the ones I noted before, because they only have G10, and I'm not sure how strong G10 is, but it is still plastic, so I don't know. And it's one of the things I'm not trusty about. I prefer metal handles. It is skeletonized, as you can tell. There's no spacers, no scales or anything on this. The 53 is solid G10, so it's a pretty light knife, and all those. I prefer heavier knives to flip. They get the momentum going a lot better. Let's see, another thing about this, the pins. I'll talk about that in a bit. The pins, I talked to the original owner. He's actually a collector of Spyderco balisongs, and for a limited run, they actually ran out of the single-faced pins. Let me pull out the one that I have. They use the same pins for the pocket clip as they do for the actual pivot pins. Wow, I'm getting terminology messed up. But standard is this nice flat polished side, and then it's got a screw on the other, right here. It's a Torx bit, if you can tell. Let me grab my magnifying glass. You can see that a little bit better. It is a tang pin. A Torx bit. I cannot speak today. Torx bit with a skeletonized pocket clip. The way this would work, let's close up my knife so I don't cut myself. These recessed parts right here on all 4 points. Technically, it'd be several different versions of tip-up carry. It lays right inside there, and then I unscrew this. Let's see, try not to make this fall apart. It'll basically pin the wire clip down. The backing will go through this hole, and then you put the pin in through right there, and it just pins it down, and it's really cool. It was stuck for about a month, but I soaked the joint in some cheap grease. Well, not really grease. It was motor oil, but I cleaned it up well, and it works out really nicely. It got out really nicely, so that's good. It does have some standard 242 blue Loctite on it, which is really handy because it might get loose from pulling it in and out of the pocket. These these pivot pins actually have 271 red Loctite. Let me show you the bottles. And there's different grades, which is why there's red and blue and different uses and such. So here we have blue, which is for not as strong things. It's just kind of a general usage. It's not heavy duty like red. Red really locks the stuff down. I mean, it does exactly what it says, lock tight. I used some on my engineered ring, and now I can't unscrew it. That's how strong it is. It literally just spins in circles, which is kind of annoying, but it'll wear down eventually. But it takes a while. I mean, this is strong stuff, so be very frugal with it. The blue, however, is very standard. You can get it undone. It'll just be kind of a little bit gooey. It still works really well. It still holds it down. This is what I think my preferred one is, because I don't... What happened is, because I use such a strong one, when I started undoing it, they're heat pressed, these top pins, into the body. Basically, it's a round ball of metal, and then they flatten it, and they put a press in the center so it actually has the cutout for the Torx bit. And then they use, while it's still hot, they push it onto the body of the screw. It didn't get a complete weld on this one, so when I was turning it, I torqued it off, basically. So the body's still in there, nice and glued shut with red Loctite. So it's still, I mean, it's still flippable, and I've been flipping it all day, and the blade plate is still the same. And it's a little bit looser, but it's right about where I got it. So it's, you know, it holds. Definitely holds, but don't like that the screw came off, so I have to get new ones for those. But yeah, these are double face side screws. It does stick out a little bit, but that's not too big of a deal. It's not that huge of a problem. Okay, that was all construction. A lot of construction. The blade is VG10 steel. It's phenomenal steel. In my unboxing, I said it was similar to F30V, 154cm, ATS34, and I believe that was it, but I was wrong. It is similar to 154cm and ATS34. Actually, it's a hair better. But S30V is on like the next tier up. The one I meant to compare it to is S60V. There's S60, or S30, S60, and S90. S90 and S30 are both in the next tier up. S60 is in the same tier as 154cm, VG10, and ATS34. Yeah, so just wanted to clarify that. I'm sure I'm going to get some comments about that later in my unboxing. I might have to annotate. Anywho, a little bit about the steel, because I think it's important we know why the steel is good, why we're spending so much money on this kind of steel. It is a Japanese-produced steel made in Seki City, Japan, and the really big thing I believe that's in here is it's got a couple main components. Obviously, because it's steel, it has to have iron and carbon, so iron's kind of discontinued. It's not even counted. So you've got a high carbon content, which allows for a really nice blade. It can be honed down to a very nice sharp edge and a very shallow angle, so that it gets more of a wedge shape, because that's all a knife really is a really pointy wedge. It's got a good chromium count, so it's rust resistant, but that does take away from the carbon, so it becomes a little bit more malleable and doesn't hold that edge for long. Mobilidium, which allows all the floating carbons that are in the steel and everything to combine to a stronger crystalline structure. There we go. Holds it a lot better, and also allows for a finer grain size, so it can be sharpened back down to a finer point. And then finally, vanadium. All Japanese steels I have seen so far have vanadium. ATS34, VG10, AUS 8, or actually AUS 4, 6, 8, and 10 all have vanadium. I'm sure some others have vanadium. I'm not familiar with them. If you go to Spyderco's website or Benchmade's, they've got a fantastic chart with all the steels they use, all the content of them from every element, what every element does. It's a fantastic little PDF file they've got on there, and it's really great. I think you should check it out. But vanadium allows for an even finer grain size and just allows for that edge to be razor sharp. So while I can get a Kershaw Oso Suite for $16, it'll have AUS 6 steel. it won't hold that edge for a long time, but I can get that thing as sharp as I possibly want. I mean, that thing can be literally a razor blade. And VG10 is just phenomenal. I mean, it's getting the toughness out of like D2 and just all that sharpness, and it's phenomenal. The one problem though is that it's a recurve blade. Now, some people don't like just the idea of recurve blades. I do. You do get this nice belly, so if you start to cut here, it will immediately dig in right here. It's the same thing, the same idea as a kukri or a barong or several of these other recurve knives. A lot of Emerson's, Emerson CQC Super 8 or something like that. The Super Commander and the Commander both have these recurves. Also the CQC 15. But the thing you have to watch out for is the primary bevel. That's what really makes these a pain in the butt to sharpen. Because the bevel starts here and it's an even line, it's a shallower angle here, so I can get a finer tip here, but it's going to take a lot more steel off if I try to get that same angle down in this little concave part. I mean, it's still sharp-ish. I mean, I could definitely feel a biting edge on there, but it's nowhere near as close as this. So that's the problem. What really fixes this is if you have the same amount of angle from the primary grind all the way down. So if this line wasn't straight and followed the same contours as this line, it wouldn't matter how hard it was to sharpen. It would be as sharp here as it would here. So that's something that Emerson definitely fixed, or I think managed to figure out. Obviously, the aesthetics wouldn't be as good on this because it's trying to be a more symmetrical design with the modified tip point, or excuse me, modified spear point. As you can see, it still has the same here and here. But yeah, so overall, it's a great knife. Now, while this one's in VG10, the series lasted, I believe, for 3 years, and only the first run was done in VG10. The next two were done in 440C, which is still a phenomenal steel. It's absolutely great. It's on par with AUS 8, I believe, or maybe AUS 10, in that range. It's really good. I mean, it's not a bad steel, so if you're able to get either one, I would suggest it highly. As a flipper, though, I chose this knife because of how weird it is. A lot of people complain about how hard it is to flip this knife because of the square handles, just the odd sizes, and the really strange contours of the knife. That's why I like it. It's an oddball knife, just like the Spyderfly or all those other kind of curved-handled ones. The Bradley Mayhem, Benchmade 53, all those. That's what I like. I like those odd-sized ones. And while I do appreciate the traditional ones, like the Benchmade 40X series, 42, 47s, 45s, all those, I like oddball stuff. I have EDC'd this for a couple of weeks, and I need to get a sheath for it that'll actually work comfortably for me. But until then, I'm going to have to put it off and use my other knives. Oh, that was a mouthful. Okay, so that's my review on the Spyderco Spyderfly. Wow, not the Superfly. Definitely too pricey for a Superfly. Anyway, yeah, so that's my review. Thanks again for watching, and have a nice day.